All right, Shay. So, like I said, not a lot of news around the SEC, but so that's why I had to come up with the latest list of the offseason. This is one I've done the last couple of years, and people sure love to call me an idiot for these ones. So,
Uh-huh.
let's do it, buddy. Let's do. I ranked the SEC play callers on both sides
Did
of the
you say
ball.
did you say I or we?
This is Cousin Shane's list here at Big Orange
Nuh-uh.
Falls.
Nothing to do with this one, but I will sit back here and judge accordingly. So this is a very popular list you put out every year, Mike. I don't expect this one to be any different. So we're going to cover both offense and defense today.
Yes, sir.
All right, man. Let me get another cold beer here, and let's do this.
All right, we're going to start with the offense. We got to start with the offense, Shane. That's where the game's at. And these are the guys that, this is what fans come to see football with now. I mean, nobody wants to see slow ass defensive game plan.
Nope.
They want to see high flying, scoring, ball throwing all over the yard. So let's start with the play callers here. Number one on my list. I'm not going to make you guess all these, Shane, but who do you think I got number one offensive play caller in the SEC? And I should note this is a little mix of head coaches and offensive coordinators. I go with my understanding of who is actually making the calls on Saturday. So number one is a head coach. I'll give you that hint. Who do you think I got number one?
I was gonna go shit, Mike, because I've got a couple here. Because I I'm Lane Train.
Lay trade.
Well, see, I didn't know if you'd go with him or the actual offensive coordinator here because he does have quite a bit of input there in that program.
Right, and I've always been a little bit confused with that because Kiffin says that Lebby calls the plays, Jeff Lebby, but just from talking to more and more people, Lane Kiffin is the ultimate decision maker when it comes to the plays there in Oxford. He's on the headset, he's listening to everything being said. So
Mm-hmm.
I gotta go with our guy Lane Kiffin, number one offensive play caller in the SEC. He's done it at Alabama.
Yeah,
He's doing it
and just
now at Ole Miss.
look what he did last year, Ole Miss. I mean,
Hmm.
there's no brainer for me too. I like this. I like this one.
Yeah, and not only is he, I'm not throwing in quarterback development or anything or recruiting, anything like that in this list, just play calling, but Lane
Mm-hmm.
Kiffin elite in those categories as well. And I think the most impressive thing we've seen from Lane Kiffin during his time at Ole Miss is just go back and watch that Alabama game where he knows Nick Saban's defense like the back of his hand, at least
Mm-hmm.
according to that game. So that game alone puts Kiffin in conversation for number one for me. All right, number two on the list, Shane. I'm staying in the state. Mike Leach. I think he's just the offensive. We throw around the term guru a lot.
Yeah.
This guy really is a guru. I mean, he's been doing it for 30 years, I think, at the college level, damn near 30 years. And I know the results were not how we wanted them last year, but I mean, he basically pantsed old Bo Pelini. In the
Yeah.
opener, Bo Pelini had no idea what the hell he was doing with this. And I know Mike Leach's offense kind of hit a brick wall there in the middle of the season, but they started to come along after they kind of weeded out the players that didn't want to be there. We started to see that momentum going, and I think in year two under Mike Leach, year two of Will Rogers as quarterback, if he wins the job, I think Mississippi State's offense is ready to kind of hit that second, third gear. What do you think about Mike Leach?
I think it's bold, Mike. I don't know why you hate the Florida Gators so much, but Mike, I'm telling you, we were all on the Coach Leach train last year. It felt like a mistake there about week 3 and 4, and slowly he started getting back into it. So I'm with you. It's play calling. It's getting the athletes that he did have on that team the opportunities to make the most out of the offense. So yeah, I can see it. I can see him at the second spot, but I could also see him dropping a little bit
Mm-hmm.
because he always, this sophomore season always felt like that's when you see Coach Leach pop. And if it doesn't happen in the SEC, I'm afraid we could look back at this list and say, you know what, maybe we got a little too excited about the Pirates. So, but I'm willing to give him one more year, and because that's usually what happens. It's usually a second season he takes off. So, for that being said, I'm good with you keeping him in the second spot.
Well, just to show I'm not too biased against Florida, I got Dan Mullen, number 3. He is one hell of a play caller, and there may not be a better, mind in college football when it comes to matchups and getting his guys in space. And, he's just done a terrific job over the years, and, getting Pitts, in position to make so many plays. Kadarius Toney, so many plays last season especially, and this is even before we were talking about his quarterback development. I mean, who in the hell was Kyle Trask before Dan Mullen came along? Felipe Franks looked like he was a complete bust until he started, playing for Dan Mullen. Dak Prescott can go on and on and on. But Dan Mullen, he's the one behind the offense there in Gainesville. He's got that thing humming. And I know there's a lot of new parts this season, but because they got Dan Mullen calling the shots here, I know Florida's going to have at least a very good offense next season with Dan Mullen calling the plays.
Yeah, and Dan's one of those guys that if it depends on who I'm talking to, they can easily convince me that he's the best in the country. And but we're taking out the development side. You're just doing strictly play calling, so I can see why you maybe got him at the 3 spot, but it would not surprise me if we look back at this at the end of the season and say, God, Mike, why the hell did you not have Dan first? Look what he did with Kyle Trask. Look what he did with the talent that he had down there, things he's able to accomplish when he was at Mississippi State. It's hard not to have an argument there saying that Dan's not the best on this list. And I'm just glad it's your list and not mine. So I'm going to go ahead and mute Gator notifications because it's about to get loud in here, Mike.
All right, how about this? You're going to like this one. Number 4, Josh Heupel, Tennessee. And, man, if you just look at the numbers, I mean, it's incredible what his offenses did down there at UCF. Several top 10 offense across the board in many key metrics. And then, the only thing you could say is, well, hell, that's not the SEC and all this. Well, hell, he's done it in the SEC when he was calling plays up Missouri. So, Drew Lock had his best years under Josh Heupel, and as soon as he left Missouri, they hired Derrick Dooley, and it fucking drove off a cliff there. So, I mean, if that's not evidence that Josh Heupel knows what he's doing, I don't know what is. I think, much like Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss last season, I think everybody's underrating what's coming at Tennessee, especially if they can find themselves a quarterback. I think the offense is going to be something to see there on Rocky Top.
I like that. It's funny, every time you mention Dooley, especially with Mizzou, I always go back to him and Des Bryant fighting on the sideline there at Dallas. And I was just, I was like, somebody up there said, who'd be a good hire? That guy. He done destroyed one program. Let's bring him up here. So, no, that was a terrible hire. But anyway, I like this, Mike. I like this a lot. But I got to ask you. I mean, I love this. Was this for me? Did you do this for me? Did you put them up here to give Big Orange Balls a little love and, so he could get through the offseason knowing that we're going to be, in bad shape next year? Is that what this is? Or
well, just wait till you see where I got the defensive coordinator ranked before you think I'm jumping too much on the bandwagon here.
Okay.
All right, number 5 offensive coordinator, Shane. I think you'll like this one too. Eli Drakowitz. We've only seen 1 year at Missouri, but, you can't say that, he hasn't gotten the job done there. I mean, he's was up for SEC Coach of the Year, and it's even more impressive that he's calling all the plays. He did that at other stops, including Appalachian State and NC State, and looking at the numbers that he had at NC State, they have fallen off a cliff since Drakowitz left there too. So he might be one. You keep mentioning all these guys, maybe a little too low. Drakowitz, I think by the end of the season could be one where we're looking at and say, how'd you have him number 5?
I'm telling you because, and it's not the numbers. I mean, you could pull out the stats and you can say, oh, but look how many, it's just, that's not what we're talking here. I think when you're talking best play call, you're going neutral. Like everybody has the University of Alabama roster last year.
Right.
And, you're going into a game, who's going to have the better offense? And I just love what Eli was able to do last year and putting his guys in the best opportunities to win. We saw the LSU game. That was fantastic. There was a couple of games that it came down to the wire. And even though they were undermanned, understaffed, they just found ways to just crawl into some of these games. So that comes down to coaching. So I'm all for this one. I think we look back here in a few years and we're going to say, damn, I can't believe Missouri you think about the hires that they made last year. I think Mizzou got the sneaky one, man. I think they're one of those that says, we got an offensive guru here.
Mm-hmm. All right, how about this one, Shane? I think this guy has got a real shot to jump up this list in a year's time. But number 6, Kendall Briles, Arkansas. I really like what he's done all across his track record there in college football. And this is the first time he's been somewhere for longer than one season. And I think going back 4, maybe 5 seasons. So
yeah,
getting some continuity there. I know the quarterback's changed over to KJ Jefferson likely, but basically all the pieces around him are back. The offensive line, all the receivers outside of Mike Woods who transferred, and some talented running backs. And this Arkansas offense really, started slow last season, but then it really started to come on towards the tail end of the season. And I think the Razorbacks, much like a couple of these other teams, are poised for really big seasons on the offensive side of the ball. I think Kendall Briles is one to know.
And kudos to all the Arkansas fans that stuck around, didn't turn off the pod there after Eli. Because I was thinking that them two could have been back and forth. So I like where he's at. I could definitely see him. It's one of those same situations, just takes that raw talent that he has had and got the most out of it. Arkansas's offense, say what you want, look night and day difference this year or last season, and that's all because of coaching. So and player development, but I think coaching from top to bottom made Arkansas stay in a lot of these games last year, and hell, probably could have pulled off a few more upsets. So a lot of that has to do with Briles. So this is a good spot for him.
Now, how about this, Shane? You may have some. I'm going to get called out for this one. I'm already ready for it. But number 7, Jimbo Fisher, Texas A&M, one of the best coaches in all of college football. How could I have him number 7 on this list? But I think it's accurate, Shane, because if you look across the board, it's not like Texas A&M's offense is necessarily lighting up the scoreboard. It's a combination of really, they've been very balanced. I'll give them that, but I just don't think that the passing game has come along like I thought it would be. That's not to say that it's not going to start doing that now, but years and years of Kellen Mond, you'd think it would. I don't know. I just think it'd be a little bit more impressive, and I think you can make the argument that the defense has been more impressive than the offense there in College Station. So Jimbo Fisher, I got him number 7. What do you think about that?
I don't know why you hate the Aggies so much, Mike. That's that SEC Mike. No, I think you make some good points, but I think what we're overlooking here is Jimbo only lost one game last year, and it was to national champs that went undefeated. Right? Did I miss something? That was it, right?
That was it.
Just one loss, and it was to an early season favorite with Alabama Crimson Tide. I think the problem that Jimbo runs into is it wasn't sexy. It wasn't as sexy as some of these other games that we watched because he didn't need to be. He had a freaking dominant offensive line. He had great running backs. He didn't need to throw. He didn't need to make Kellen Mond win games, even though he did a few times. So, I think you're a little bullish on Jimbo because Jimbo – we talked the same thing with Dan. Dan took what he had and made it work with the University of Florida. Now, I'm expecting the offense to look similar not identical, but similar to what Texas A&M put out on the field last year. It's not going to be nearly as flashy and sexy, but it's going to be productive and it's going to keep the chains moving. So I don't know. I think maybe a little bullish on Jimbo because, like I said, he only lost one game, and I don't know what it would have looked like if these guys would have played each other again like they should have in the playoffs.
All right, how about this one, Shane? Don't turn off the show. Maybe just turn it down there, Gamecocks. Number 8, Mike Bobo, Auburn. Now Auburn offensive coordinator. I know the Gamecocks sure do hate them some Bobo, but I still can't get over that. The fact that they think he did such a horrible job. They got Kevin Harris led the SEC in rushing. Shi Smith now playing in the NFL. He was nowhere close to being an NFL player heading into last season, and I think a lot of South Carolina's issues came down to just not having a quarterback that was that good last season, yet the offense was the side of the ball that was the strongest, and we all know Bobo, the historic offenses he led at Georgia, so I think Auburn's got themselves a good one in Mike Bobo. What do you think about him?
Yeah, I've always been I don't know, maybe not a fan, but he's grown on me. And I think what he was able to do with – one second. Bruno's not a fan. I think what he's been able to do with the talent – you got to think about that. You talked about Shi Smith, literally the only weapon he had to use outside of those amazing running backs. So – I don't know. The production wasn't. It was tough. He had a tough hand he was holding last year, and I don't want to fault him for that because he's going to have a lot more talent. I think this year with Auburn, I think we can look back and say, you know what, maybe Mike's right. Maybe he is better than we thought.
Mm-hmm. All right, how about this one? This will be controversial here. Bill O'Brien, number 9, Alabama, new offensive coordinator, former head coach of the Houston Texans. And I know he did a good job there at Houston for the time he was there, but he also had Deshaun Watson last time I checked, and he'll cover up a lot of holes you got in kind of play calling issues. And if you remember, we had Adam McClintock on the other day, and he rates these guys on their play calling ability. He gave Bill O'Brien a D from his time at Penn State. So I'm not thinking that it's going to be a D performance here at Alabama with all he's got to work with, but I don't know. This is one where I got to see it to believe it, and I'm not ready to just anoint, Bill O'Brien as some great play caller until he's done it at the SEC level. Who knows? How many times, Shane, has some kind of NFL coach coming into college and thinks he knows everything and he can't relate to the players or makes it too complex or, there's so many potential landmines there that I just can't, in good conscience, put Bill O'Brien any higher than number 9 here.
Yeah, but how many offensive coordinators show up to University of Alabama and all of a sudden we crown them and think they're the God's gift to football? So I'm not expecting anything different here. In fact, this is probably going to be the most hate that you got besides Georgia. Because clearly you hate them still. But I'm just looking at this, and Bill's going to be one of those at the end of the season. He's going to be in competition with all the, I don't remember all the fancy trophy names or anything like that they have at the end of the season. But I guarantee he's going to be on every damn list, and that's just because the talent he has around him. And he was a lot of people don't know he was an offensive. I don't want to say guru, but he was an offensive-minded coach. And there for a while in Houston did the play calling and got him in trouble, I think, a little bit. So I don't want to fault him for that because you talk about SEC experience. The closest thing to SEC coaching is NFL coaching. And so I think he's not going to shy from the competition. But he's one of those guys I guarantee you right now at the end of the season, he's going to be on every watch list in the country. And that may be because of coaching, but most likely because of talent.
Mm-hmm. All right, you kind of hinted at it there. Number 10, Shane, Todd Monken, Georgia offensive coordinator. And I can imagine the Bulldogs are upset right now, but
I hear them typing right now.
Here's the deal, Shane. We've only had 1 year of him at Georgia, and I think the fact that JT Daniels was not on the field really hurt him, and that could really bump him up this list next year. But, they did not look great against Alabama. They did not look great against Florida. And I know the defenses really kind of cost them in that game. But you go back and watch Mississippi State. I think they rushed for something like 6 yards in that game. I'm just not overly impressed with what I've seen from Todd Monken so far. Like I said, it's only been 1 year. And, once JT Daniels got in there, it was kind of completely different. But also the schedule eased up quite a bit as well. So I say all that to say, I know, almost like Bill O'Brien, it's tough to put Todd Monken this low, given the fact that, he's so well respected. But it's just tough to rate him based on the quarterback play that we had at Georgia before we had JT Daniels in there. And I don't know how else to grade this guy.
But don't you feel like it was a tale of two halves though last season? Because I was with you at the start of the season, first 3, 4, 5 games in, I would have fired him immediately if I had that ability. It just felt like we weren't getting our money's worth. But toward the tail end of the season, even though the schedule eased up a little bit, it just, I don't know, it felt like Georgia found its rhythm, found its identity late in the season. And I know that's Todd's job. Todd, he needs to find this week 1, going into the season. And he wasn't able to do it. So maybe that's why we bring him down a little bit. But, if he can build off what we saw the tail end of last season, watch out, man. I think a lot of people are going to save his pod and say Mike's an idiot, I fully expect it.
Wouldn't be the first time.
But again, it comes back to talent. They've got the talent. They just need to get all the pieces working together. And if they can, starting out the season, they got some tough games right there out of the gate. Do you got their schedule? Just the first 4 or 5 games? Just curious.
Yes, sir. I got it right here. Georgia Bulldogs. First game, of course, the season opener in Charlotte against Clemson.
Yeah.
That'll be tough.
I mean, yeah, you got to hit the ground running, Mm-hmm. I mean, you don't even have to go past week 1, Mike. I forgot about them playing Clemson. Mm-hmm. That's going to be your telltale sign right there. Now, if they come out and they look like offensive juggernauts like they did toward tail end of last season, maybe Todd's redeemed himself. But that's kind of where we're at with him right now. He's more in a prove it type of season.
Yeah, and then the rest of the offensive coordinator, Shane, I didn't feel right kind of ranking any of them because they're all short on experience, calling plays at this major level. Jake Peets at LSU, Marcus Satterfield, South Carolina, Liam Cohen, Kentucky, David Rea from Vanderbilt. So they're kind of all in the same boat. This first year offensive coordinators at this level and been assistants at their previous stops. A lot of these guys, in fact, all these guys, I believe, have NFL experience. So I'm not sitting here saying these guys are terrible, but how in the hell can you rank them when they've not done it? You know what I mean?
Exactly. I'm with you.
All right, so let's flip on over to the defensive side here, Shane. Number 1, Dan Lanning, Georgia. I love the job that old Dan Lanning's done there in Athens. I think, before long, this guy he probably could have had the Kansas job if he wanted it, but I thought it was wise for him to kind of pull back on that because Georgia may be in for such a huge season that he may have his choice of jobs by the end of it. Great game call, a play caller on the defensive side of the ball. Dan Lanning, number 1 in the SEC, defensive play caller. Thoughts on that one?
No, I like this, Mike. I like it a lot. In fact, this is going to be the last time, I think, that we're going to be able to say that about him in the University of Georgia. I think this is the year that he finally decides to take that head coaching position somewhere else. But enjoy it while you got it because they got a fantastic defensive coordinator there.
Mm-hmm. All right, number 2 on my list, Shane. Barry Odom, Arkansas. And, I think he was getting a ton of respect at the beginning of last season when Arkansas, of course, they faced Georgia tough.
Mm-hmm.
And then that was a huge upset against Mississippi State. And you got to remember back at that time, Mississippi State was coming off the season opener win against LSU. And everybody thought Mississippi State maybe a top 10 team or something crazy like that. And then all of a sudden just went downhill because Barry Odom schemed up a defensive scheme to slow them down, and everybody just basically copied it for the rest of the year. And yeah, the defense fell apart in Fayetteville last season, but I was saying that to anybody that would listen that was going to happen, and it was just,
Depth.
it was unfair for Arkansas to have to play 10 SEC games, and
Yep.
you nailed it right there. They didn't have the players, they didn't have the depth. Now I think they'll have certainly a lot better of both, and I think that early season defense we saw from Arkansas last season is going to show a lot more next season. So thoughts on Barry Odom being number 2?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt, man. And you always know you got a good coordinator when they're the first names that keep popping up in head coaching positions.
Right.
We just missing one there at Georgia. This is no different. There for a second we thought there was a shot he wouldn't be back in Arkansas, and he did come back. But I think this is similar to Dan. I think this is maybe his last season as a coordinator there in Arkansas, but they got a hell of a good one.
All right, number 3 on my list, Shane, another guy that could potentially be landed a head coaching job before long, Mike Elko, Texas A&M defensive coordinator. Them Aggies, this is kind of what I was saying when I think the defense has been the stronger side of the ball in College Station, and that's no slight to the offense because they've certainly been doing a great work on that side of the ball, but it's just another level at Texas A&M where they got defensive guys going to the NFL every year. They got several more on this defense that are poised to do it in the next draft to come. I think Texas A&M, I keep saying it, they may have the best defense in the SEC next year, and that's largely a credit to Mike Elko and Jimbo landing these defensive players, and Elko just calling good game plans on Saturday.
Let me ask you, Mac, because how close were you with these top 3? Because you could have came out and said, "Hey, I've got Elko 1, I've got Dan." I could have seen these 3 right here go in any order. I mean, how close are we talking when you were making this list what made you land Elko at 3 as opposed to 1?
Yeah, honestly, they're basically interchangeable, but
yeah,
I don't know. I just think that a little bit of I tried to project a little bit of what I think because I keep saying Texas A&M probably gonna have the best defense, but I think Georgia may have the best overall season.
Yeah,
and then Barry Odom, man, I just can't get over the job. We got to remember how shitty Arkansas was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, they were like a laughingstock of college football. And then here last season, hell, there was people saying they were going to go 0-10, toughest. And remember, they got out of the East, they gave them Florida and Georgia. I mean, it was like, my God, what are you doing to these people? And then here they come, and he's got walk-ons winning SEC Defensive Player of the Week. And they picked apart Lane Kiffin offense. They picked apart Mike Leach. I mean, hell, maybe Barry Odom should be number 1. I'm talking myself into all these guys should be number 1. You know what?
Right. Yeah, I was just worried because you could have came out in any order on those top 3, and I would have been like, oh yeah, I could see that. But you make some good points with Odom. I mean, if you give him Texas A&M roster, if you give him Georgia's roster, I mean, are we saying something different? So I don't know, man. This is just food for thought, but I was just curious your opinions there.
All right, number 4 on my list, and that was a good point by you, Shane. I think there's a little bit of a step down here, but not much, because if you're number 4 in the SEC and a defensive play caller, you are one hell of a play caller, and that's what I think of Zac Arnett there at Mississippi State. I think that defense just kind of came out of nowhere last season, and they played their guts out time and time again. And it was while Mike Leach's offense was struggling through much of the year, it was the defense that was holding this thing together. And time after time, they just, they came with a great game plan. And I think probably about 9 times out of 10, they were, they had not as good talent as who they were facing. Yet the dam never really broke there for Mississippi State. And I think that's a credit to Zac Arnett.
Yeah, for sure. And they kind of surprise you, don't you? Yeah, I mean, when you're thinking about the best defensive coordinators, you don't ever think of Mike Leach's defensive coordinators. It's usually those are usually just interchangeable. But what they were able to do last year was impressive, aggressive, and it was downright fun to watch. You mentioned the Georgia game earlier in the pod, man. I mean, if it weren't for that damn defense, it wouldn't have been a ball game. So,
right.
For Mississippi State's defense, so I think this is great. But do you think? Let me ask you, because I'm playing devil's advocate here, because I did not make this damn list, guys. But if we're predicting, or you're predicting, Mike Leach's offense to really start taking off, which when that happens, they're on the field less when they're being very productive. So that means the defense will be on the field more. Do we look back and say maybe that was a one-season fluke, or do you think it's repeatable what he was able to do last season?
No, I think it's repeatable because last season, I mean, I'm looking back at games like Kentucky where the only score was a defensive score, and Mike Leach, I don't think he had ever been shut out. He got shut out in another game, yet the defense just kept showing up. So if the offense is doing their part and scoring 20, 30 points per game, the hell, they probably would have had one of the best records in the SEC last year. So, no, I think this is an opportunity for that defense to get better, play less reps on the field. But if that happens, I think Mississippi State fans are going to be pretty damn excited.
Okay. All right, man.
All right, how about this? There's a little bit of a projection here, Shane, but I think we're going to find out how good of a defensive coach Derrick Mason is, because I got him number 5 there, of course, at Auburn now, formerly the head coach there at Vanderbilt. And, you could certainly dock him for what happened there at Vanderbilt, but, so many issues were kind of in his way, obstacles in his way, if you will. But I think Derrick Mason is one of the top 5 defensive minds in the SEC. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, without a doubt, man. I'm glad you have him on this list, because could you imagine? He was everybody was talking about how great a defensive mind coach he was when he took this Vanderbilt job, and that didn't change. It is just situational. It's recruiting. He didn't have the athletes to compete like he did in the other, these other teams. So I think we look back with Derrick Mason and a whole handful of new toys down there. I think he's going to be fine, and it won't be long for he's starting to get that little rumor floating around at taking jobs.
Mm-hmm. All right, number 6 on my list, Shane. This guy catches a ton of hell. I think he's a good coach. So Todd Grantham, Florida defensive.
Third and Grantham. How the hell is he making on here?
Yes, last season was a damn disaster, but last time I checked, it was a disaster for damn near everybody on that defensive side of the ball. So I think the Gators defense takes a big rebound this season. And, man, I just think of what he did at Mississippi State. I think about what he did the first couple of years there at Florida, because I know we want to give Dan Mullen all the credit in the world, but when he got there, it was not an offensive juggernaut. Mm-hmm. It was more of a defensive juggernaut there, starting out that the Dan Mullen era. So I think Todd Grantham, there's a lot going for him. And yes, I know last season was a disaster. I think I had him 3 or 4 last year, so I certainly docked him some spots here, but I think he's a lot better than people get him credit for.
Yeah, I remember them fighting on the sideline last year. So I don't know. I've been I don't know. I've talked him up years past, but last season, I think I was a little underwhelmed, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
But that's not what Florida identity was last year, and I expect it to be more of a game management defensive style, and you do that, I think, by having a great defense. And I think that's what, if your guys aren't on the field the entire, I mean, think about that. Kyle Pitts just doing an 80-yard touchdown. Your guys are right back out there. It's tough to follow that up. Kyle Trask, I mean, say what you want, man. The guy was airing it out. He's scoring touchdowns like crazy. This was a fast-moving offense, which meant that defense spent a lot of time on the field. And I don't think that happens this year. I think we look back and we say, you know what, Todd got it figured out, and they get it figured out because the offense slowed down a little bit. So, yeah, I'm with you on this one. This is a good call.
All right, number 7, Pete Golding, Alabama defensive coordinator, where this guy's caught in a ton of hell too in Tuscaloosa, but Alabama's defense rebounded last season. Of course, they've got so many good players to work with there, but they did lead the SEC in scoring defense, and I think Alabama's defense, from all accounts, that's going to be the strength of the team. Maybe one of the better defenses in recent Alabama history. So Pete Golding could be shooting up this list. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I'm with you on here. This is similar build conversations. It's just I think the talent is there this year. I think the defense looks a lot better, to be honest with you, this year than it did years past. So don't be surprised if he doesn't move up this list.
Shane, can I tell you a Pete Golding story I heard real quick that I don't think I'm allowed to tell, but I'm going to tell you anyway.
Okay. I love stories.
I believe this was this was not too recently, but I think it was the first year Pete Golding was there. Alabama was playing in the college football playoff.
Mm-hmm.
I was told that he had some kind of like a stroke or something.
Oh, wow.
And he was advised not to coach in the college football playoff game.
Uh-huh.
And he went into the damn booth and coached a fucking game with a doctor right next to him. Like, that's the man's commitment. And I think the expectation, I'm certain that nobody at Alabama told him he had to do it or anything, but you just never know how many of those big games you're going to get in your life. And I think that shows you the commitment that Pete Golding has to being one hell of a defensive coach here. So could you imagine?
Say what you want. No, say what you want, man. Defensive coaches they're the toughest bastards in that locker room. Typically, growing up, it was, your offensive guys, they come in with their clipboards and their visors, and they're just, they're ready to score some points. But if you need, help changing a tire or pulling, pulling a tractor out, you get your defensive coordinator. He's the tough bastard you want to be with. So I love this. They don't get enough respect. They really don't, especially these days. 2021, nobody's talking about defense, man. It's all about offense. And that's probably why we didn't hear the stroke story here. So I love it, Mike. I love it. Thank you for behind the scenes there.
All right, number 8. Now, this is really going to piss some people off because this guy's a hell of a coach, but number 8, Brad White, Kentucky defensive coordinator, and it's no knock on him. I can hear it now. Big Blues already mad. Kentucky has got an outstanding defense. Last season, though, they kind of got, I don't want to say exposed because they played tough for virtually every game, but I think in the second half they kind of wilted, and that's probably more of a function of the offense just having no passing game and being nothing but run and grind out the clock and what have you. But I think Brad White, don't let this fool you, number 8, because there's much like, hell, this is the SEC, brother. And if you're 8 out of 14, you're still a hell of a coach here. And he's one that doesn't get enough respect. But I just think these guys ahead of him are a little bit better. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm going to stick out. I'm going to stay out of this one, Mike. It's between you and Kentucky.
All right, number 9 here. Clayton White, South Carolina. Their new defensive coordinator come over from Western Kentucky. Now, obviously, I'm not sitting here studying a lot of Western Kentucky, but from all accounts, this guy's a hell of a coordinator. He's been, up for the National Assistant Coach of the Year several times. And while I like Marcus Satterfield, the more I hear about the offensive coordinator, I've heard a lot more good things about Clayton White. So I think he's going to bring a different kind of defense here to South Carolina than we've had in recent years. I think it's going to be more of I think what they're running there is like a 4-2-5. So I'm interested to see how they factor that in there in Columbia. But thoughts on Clayton White there, number 9?
No thoughts, Mike. just learning his name right now. So we'll see. I'll hold the judgment for now. We're getting down here in the weeds, Mike.
Number 10. Now, this guy was really, really tough to grade here, but I put Steve Wilkes, Missouri defensive coordinator, former longtime NFL defensive coordinator, and he's got the 1 year as being the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. And he's not coached in college football in like 20-something years. So
I'll tell you, one of the most interesting hires this offseason.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah, and by all accounts, the defense was, looking pretty strong there in the spring. So I honestly had no idea where to rank Steve Wilkes on this list, but I put him number 10 because he's got room to improve. But, if you coach 20 years in the NFL, you got to be a damn good coach. And I couldn't put him any lower than number 10, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Number 11, DJ Durkin. They're at Ole Miss. I mean, they were a damn disaster on defense, but again, so were a lot of people. First year, undermanned. I mean, this is basically what you were thinking you were getting with Barry Odom. Yeah. You were thinking you were getting something like this, but that's what actually happened at Ole Miss. So until old DJ turns things around, I can't put him any higher than this.
Okay.
All right, then the last three, Shane. These I couldn't really figure out how to rank these guys, so I put basically all the same here. Jesse Minter, Vanderbilt, Tim Banks, Tennessee, and Durante Jones, LSU, all, Banks has got college football experience at a number of stops, but the other two, NFL experience, and I don't have any background on any of them really calling plays outside of Tim Banks has done it here or there with mixed results, but I think these are kind of the...
What about LSU, though? I mean, Coach O is probably going to be more involved with that one, don't you think?
Well, yeah, certainly he's got to be. After what we saw last year with old Bo Pelini, that ain't going to cut it. But, they're trying to run the Dave Aranda defense, and this Durante Jones worked under Dave Aranda. So, but Dave Aranda was a special coach for a reason, and he's a head coach of Baylor for a reason because he's such a smart guy. So, it's not that I think Jones is a terrible coach, but again, he's tough to evaluate. Last year he was a position coach in the NFL. I don't have any knowledge of him serving as a play caller at major college football, so I can't really put him anywhere but the bottom of the list at the moment.
Right, I got you.
But all right, Shades, hey, we spieled on long enough here. That's my list, and I'm at Big Orange Vols if you want to rip it relentlessly here, but... Hey, I'm glad that we got to work through that one, and I hope the fans appreciate the fact that we got to hit on all 14 teams.
Yeah, and that's what we try to do, Mike. We want to get some info out on every team because every team's important. It's list season, so I think it was perfect. You hit the nail on the head here. So, but this is one of my favorite ones. I like to actually. I do. I honestly turn off notifications on here for a few days. And then I'll get on there and see what fight, Mike got into. But I thought your list was pretty good this year, Mike. There's obviously a couple, that they're going to – this is the thing, though. If you could clearly paint the picture of neutral teams, neutral site, just these guys coaching your boys, it's hard because naturally you want to say, well, why does he hate LSU? Or why does he hate Georgia? It's not that he hates Georgia. It's just saying if he had the same roster – he thinks these guys would be coached better. So I don't know how you're going to articulate that in 140 characters, but good luck, Mike. I appreciate the list.
Well, buddy, I appreciate you hopping on the line here, and I appreciate all the listeners tuning in all throughout, obviously the season, but the off season as well. So, hey, that's going to do it for this one. Went a little bit long, but appreciate each and every one of you, and that's going to do it. I'll catch you on the next one.
See you guys. Go Vols.